evening, and welcome to the fourth episode of Talks with Moire. We'll be talking about a subject matter that's just as pretentious as this voice. Darrow, please take it away.
Well, thank you for joining me once again. This is always a fun time. Every time we do a panel, it's always a great time. And this one is especially close to my heart because I feel like we might finally start to see a bigger divide amongst us a bit because I'm definitely leaning one way with it and it's not the way most people usually go. So yeah, I'm just very interested to see how everything flows tonight. But yeah, topic is film school. Like, should you go? Shouldn't you go? I know it's been covered to death, I'm sure, but like I feel like we've got a nice little collection of people here tonight that have one way or another been involved with it from just dabbling, putting a toe in to fully graduating, and then some people on the panel are still in school. So it all varies, right? But yeah, who do we have on the panel joining me today? To my right, actually to my right in real life for once.
It's Jamara Forbes. I am a co-owner and creative mastermind at Orange Hat Film Productions, and I did attend film school with Darryl. So that will definitely be part of my perspective tonight.
Oh.
Yeah.
To my right.
Somebody by to her right, he means on the way downtown in downtown London in Canada. I'm normally the host of First Days with Maury. I'm Ian Taylor. I'm currently working on a script. I'm a huge gamer, huge nerd, huge D&D player. But hopefully I'll be making a film soon, and I've taken film school to an extent, but we'll get into further details on that later. But to my right, actually not too far from downtown, if he's still in school.
I'm not.
Surprise.
Hi, I'm Tad. I am also a graduate of the advanced filmmaking program at Fanshawe College. I went to film school with Darryl and Jamara. We were all in film class together. I work a little bit with Orange Hat Film Productions. I do a little bit of my own stuff, and I'm back at Fanshawe College learning 3D animation and character design. So
Woo!
yeah, not much has changed, I guess. So, and to my right,
Last but not
all
least.
the way, yeah, last but not least,
All the way in Nova Scotia.
My name is Aaron Kramers. I went to film school for only one semester, but I have learned filmmaking through being on set and through YouTube videos. So, in other words, I am a film school dropout, but the drive to become a filmmaker is still there. So, I am talking in the perspective of someone who chooses to become a filmmaker without finishing film school.
woo, rebel.
I mean, that's a good place to start too, because I feel like with this conversation, there's 1,000 examples of each, but like one of my favorite directors is Kevin Smith, and he did the exact same thing. He went to Vancouver Film School, I believe. Oops. Sorry about that. Went to Vancouver Film School. I think did one semester and then dropped out and made a movie with the rest of the tuition. Right. So, like, it's completely possible. Especially into today's day and age, which is the biggest advantage we have. I feel like on the side of like doing it without school, I lean towards like do it however you see fit. You know what I mean? Because there is so much available and so many good resources. The reality is a lot of what I've learned about cinematically creating images has come after film school. My God. And I feel like it can't be understated how much that had an effect on me, like almost equally as going to film school. I don't know. It's I wouldn't say it's interchangeable by any means, but it doesn't really matter how you get there. Once you kind of get over that hump, it is a wide open sea. And like, I'm just really glad that things like that, you're still going, because people can be very deterred by not finishing, not completing something like that. But with film school specifically, I feel like it's the one area where tons of people who drop out can still do great things. And it's not like, medical field, like dropouts of the medical career don't go on to have great careers operating. So like, I don't know.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should start off with what kind of film school experience have we all had, if any, and how is that? Well, actually, we'll go with the second part, but for now, I just want a baseline of what did you guys take in film school, where did you go, and what kind of diploma did you get from it? Well, let's start simple and branch out.
Me and Darryl and Jamara, we all went to the same film school, and we took it the year that like they were doing a lot of like restructuring. So there was a lot of things going on that was just like, I feel like this could have been done better. But yeah, I don't know. Like me personally, I think like I'm glad that I took it, and I feel like even though like most of the stuff that I learned nowadays, yeah, you could probably find on the internet, and still like you don't have to spend the thousands of dollars in tuition. But at the same time, like I feel the best thing to get out of film school, hands down, is the networking aspect, and just like meeting people who are like-minded, meeting people who want like kind of the same thing, and like building kind of like a friend base of people who can like help you achieve your dreams, and then like in return you also like help them achieve their dreams, and like
100%.
yeah. So I don't know, that's kind of my whole
That
thoughts
is
on the
one
film
aspect
school.
that I agree with in terms of like film school.
Yeah, so our program was like 3 years. We did like 2 years of like a film studies, which was pretty general, and we had a lot of other electives that weren't film related. And then our third year was like intensive advanced filmmaking, which was cool because like Tad's saying, like we got to collaborate with the acting program, we got to collaborate with the post-production audio program, and we still have some of those connections today.
Yeah,
And
we're still working with a lot of those people today.
yeah, and like those people have introduced us to other actors or other sound people or other people that are filmmakers or want to be involved, and it's just an ever growing network, which I think is, I wouldn't say necessarily it's worth the amount that you pay for film school, but there are some other positives, like the gear that we got access to. I know Darryl, that's probably one of his favorite parts about film school, was just access to all of the cameras. And
Well, I mean, it's really what you make it, right? Like, so I'll echo a lot of what these guys are saying. You know what I mean? Same year, same everything. Kind of to fill out what Tad's saying a bit. Like we were on the bubble of 1080p to 4K. Like that's kind of the transition, and like gimbals becoming a lot more of a usable thing. We were blessed that we just got the two cinema lenses, the Canon cinema lenses there. Like right midway through our program, they got them. So it was pretty awesome to get your hands on like something awesome. But at the end of the day, the camera I was using was an AF100, like a Panasonic AF100, and that was the good one there. I'm not even going to talk about the 720p ones that are fine cameras but just dated. But yeah, the AF100, like it was usable, but like it maxed out at 1080p, and the lenses just they weren't shining as great as they could. And this was an entire program shooting on these things. Like it just felt like at a certain point that we were kind of a little behind in ways.
we got one weekend or one opportunity where we got to play around with red cameras. That was cool.
Yeah, that was sick. But apparently they do it with Alexas now, which
What?
which makes me even exactly. I don't think they do the
I think
lens.
I need to go back to Fanshawe, guys. I'll be right back.
Right?
They also
Only a
they
week
also
you get.
have a motion capture class now, which is like one of those things. Like, God damn, I wish I like. I mean, now I
Holy
get to play
fuck.
with like, that technology being in that course, but like, yeah, like the filmmaking students apparently use that as well. So
Yeah, dude, I would. But that's what I'm trying to say. So it's what you take out of it, right? So I am super for it in the ways they were saying, where like you get to network, you get to meet the people. But on top of that, I think you get to learn all the ins and outs. Like as much as you don't want to be a gaffer or a boom up or an AD on someone's set, they force you to be an AD so that you learn the paperwork side. And if we didn't learn the paperwork side, like that's honestly when people come to us and they're like, "Oh, how do you do everything with Orange Hat?" Like it began there. They showed us the roots and we could then, translate a lot of what we were seeing online into something like we don't do call sheets the way they taught us, but we know how to work call sheets and have made our own call sheets that are like more prioritized information for the kind of shoots we do.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about learning the form and then kind of playing with it, because at the end of the day you're talking about 1 year at still one of the earliest stages in your career. Like I don't think that the dreams people have of going to film school and then becoming famous after like equate at all. Like you really should see it way more like grade one all over again. Like you need to start learning a whole different industry, a whole different language, a whole like it really isn't what I think a lot of the students see it being when they show up. And I think that's why you have such a dichotomy of people being like, yo,
no,
fuck
absolutely,
film school.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like when I know, like when we kind of like went into film school, we kind of had this like naivety of being like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go to film school, I'm gonna graduate, and then become like a big time director. And it's like,
Everyone's been
yeah,
there.
that doesn't really happen. Like most of the people who go to film school, most of the time, like they're building you up for like below the line positions. For anybody who doesn't know, like above the line is like director, screenwriter, actors, producers, like everything in like the opening credits is usually like above the line. And then below the line is like everybody else. And like we know people in our course who are like doing below the line work and like still working in that industry and they're doing just fine. But like if you want to be a film director or if you want to be a screenwriter or if you want to be like one of those creative aspects, really the best teacher isn't film school. I would say it's more so the best teacher is just actually going out and doing those things.
Yeah.
You know, like if you want to be a
Agreed.
director, go out and direct something, anything. If you want to be a writer, go out and write something, anything. Like,
And learn from your mistakes, because it's gonna be shit when you do it the first time. And like I don't like that you need to understand that, and that's why film school is good, because it's a safe place to fuck up.
Yeah, it's a
And
safeguard.
yeah, because
100%.
otherwise your shit's on YouTube. People will always be able to reference it. It's forever on the internet. You know what I mean? But like, my bad stuff is buried. You guys don't see the bad things I ever. Well, what I can, because they're buried, and I could do that because of film school. So it's a nice little blanket. But then I took
Aw.
see, I really took everything seriously the second we left film school. That's the day that our course ended. Is the day Orange Hat Productions became a thing.
Yeah, the
Like
seatbelt's
they're
off.
started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah.
And Aaron, where'd you go to school?
I went to advanced filmmaking Fanshawe, not the same year as Darryl, Tad, and Jamara, but like I went to the one in 2020 when the COVID restrictions are still happening. So I have a different experience of film school, which I had no regrets in doing, but I ended up like having to drop out due to personal conflict. And I decided not, but I've just learned filmmaking through being on set and with other filmmakers. And I've learned it through other film students. Like, I didn't work with Darryl and Tad and Jamara, but I've worked with Justin Smith, and I worked with Mason, and I worked with a lot of like people that are in the film industry, like prior to film school. So I have like film school experience that the in a way.
Well, yeah, you have real film school experience. Well, again, weird way to phrase it, but you have way more like tangible experience there. Like I feel like there's this sad thing that at least happened our year of film school where like, there were just people that didn't care as much, and if you got them on your set, it just feels like everything got kind of like dragged down, right? And
It's the epitome of like the group project situation.
Whereas in these passion projects, usually if people are there, they've given a shit and they've taken a Saturday out of their lives, and they're, like I feel like there's a better vibe on a lot of those sets, and you've got more, focused nature there versus what film school can be at times, because it's definitely not all, glitz and glory with that program. It was a very
Well, we
rough.
also had like, a lot of issues in our year when it came to like, I don't want to say like we had a lot of issues when it came to things of just like you would get somebody on set, or like, like you would have people who gave a shit and like actually like wanted to do like things, but for some reason like their work was always like sidelined, and they were always kind of like designated as like, oh yeah, like you're like a helper, like these sets or things. And it's just like, I don't know, like it's definitely one of those things where like some students' work was prioritized over others.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a great, primer for the industry.
True, very true.
But not, I don't want to get into all that, because there's an aspect where they definitely get you right ready for that. Like they bring in people from Hollywood North to be like, your life sucks. Don't expect to have anyone love you or have any kind of tangible relationship with anybody. Well, tangible is the word of the day, I guess. But they come in to try and scare you straight, essentially, and be like, chase away anybody who.
That guy from IATSE that's like, don't worry about having a family. You'll never see him.
Yeah.
A little too honest, yeah.
Yeah, it becomes clear what they're training the majority of people to be. Regardless, though, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, only because, like, Ian, tell us your background, because you kind of teased us earlier, and we've all spilled our beans. So spill your beans.
So, why did I spill my beans? So, I went to Fanshawe College, and from 2014 to 2016, got a 2-year bachelor's degree program. Met some great people, but it wasn't an advanced filmmaking class. It was a film studies class, and I took a standard filmmaking course. Made a couple of shitty movies that I hope never see the light of day. Like you said, Darryl, it's good that movies like that get buried behind, because, man, I judge other directors for being pretentious on my podcast, but none of them come even close to how pretentious I was with the movie I made. I don't even want to go on about it. But it's nowhere near as complicated as the advanced filmmaking course. I considered taking advanced filmmaking, but I just figured, like, I don't have a lot of energy right now. I'm feeling really depressed. They straight up tell you in advanced filmmaking, do not have a life outside of filmmaking. Do not have a job, because you're not going to have any time to do it. Like, you need to eat, sleep, and breathe the advanced filmmaking course. And I guess at the time that just kind of scared me off, so film studies was less of a filmmaking course and more of like a film knowledge course. Like, you learn about movies in the past, you learn about how a movie is made, but you never actually get to do it. So that's about the full extent of my course. And ever since 2016, I haven't been to school. So mostly just focused on work, and currently focusing on new screenplays. So that's, admittedly, I'm not quite as experienced in the world of filmmaking as you guys are, but I have a few, interesting insights I'd like to share for the discussion. It's not a podcast, but
yeah, but I mean, you have a cool perspective in a way too, though, right? Because like you've seen this little bit outside, and then you've seen everyone else like us, Tad, like we've all, Aaron, like we've all kind of dabbled, made our own things, and instead of like jumping right away to do that, you took a bit of time, worked on an idea for a while, which is a lot more sign of a mature project more than anything else, right? So I feel like you're leaning towards the right direction for the whole no film school route, as much as you did, like you said, film studies. It's borderline. Charlie's great, but he also doesn't try and do too much too quick with that program. So you don't end up doing like, he leaves a lot of it in the hands of the people. If they're great, they're gonna pull out some crazy stuff with the gear that's there. If not, like you'll turn out like our films, first attempt.
God, I gotta see that now.
Oh, dude, it's bad. I think I can dig up a link for you.
Mine's probably worse. Come on. Oh, come on. Mine's shot in black and white. Like, mine's probably worse.
Mine gets love from Mason.
Yeah, yours is actually good. That's why. Yours is actually a competent movie.
I mean,
yeah, go on.
I don't know. I must be the only person that actually like looks at my other work and like I look at it not with like, oh yeah, this is good, but I definitely look at it as like, this was a good start. Like,
yeah,
I don't hate my work as much as my past work as some of the other people.
But I mean, in terms of pretentiousness, one of your shorts is called Writer's Block, which is like the most film school title.
True. Yeah, very true. And it's literally, that is very true. Yeah, I can't argue against that.
I guess the next question I want to ask is, well, do you have any films you've done outside of film school? What are they called? How did shooting them go? What was the reception? And was there anything you guys learned from film school that kind of applied to the films that you made?
Who's gonna be?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it, Aaron.
Outside of film school, I have made like 3 films before I went to film school, and then I've done like a few commission work like after like a year after I dropped out. So
were those short films you're talking about, or
yeah, the short films. Yep.
Okay.
And I've been working towards trying to figure out what my feature-length script would be. So whatever it may be, it will be a surprise.
I mean, you have written 2 scripts though,
yes,
feature.
I have.
So
yes, I have.
True. True.
That's true.
What about you, Darryl and Jamar? Just a few, right?
Yeah, we have a.
It started with the miniseries. We graduated and we were like, "Yep, we're doing something this fall or this summer." I forget when we started.
Okay, again, but
right away.
That's a good jumping off point because I want to give a huge shout out to Toby Sachs, because if we're going to talk about film school, I feel like everybody else gets mentioned, but we were the last year that got Toby Sachs. She was a teacher specifically for the business side of everything.
Any teacher. She was so small.
It's like she would literally they gave her the crappiest slot of like 8 a.m. Friday, and she was like, okay, if people are gonna show up, I'm gonna begin easy. We can all get together in the middle, like everybody bring their chairs in a circle. We'll just talk it out. If people are confused, just bring it up. It sounds kind of like back to kindergarten, but it worked, man. We gave such a shit about that, the behind the scenes stuff. We actually started learning and caring about how these documents can build a structure to let a film flourish. It's like the fertilizer that makes everything good. If you don't have the fertilizer, you can still get lucky and sometimes have something grow, but fertilizer cranks up those chances tenfold, right?
Right.
So
100%. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people also that when they go into film school, they like to focus on that creative aspect and they completely forget about the business side of it. And that's just as equally as an important part of the industry as the creative stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's why some people do refer to our year as a really good year, is because we had Toby, and Toby brought we had everything else, and it was the same in other regards as other years, but Dude, yeah, I just have to give that huge shout out to her because that's the reason why when we left, she was the one who was like, Orange Hat, that's an amazing idea. You guys need to actually try with this. And like even if you're just sticking around, like make some things, do some things. And I was like, what am I gonna make? And I got really drunk and I wrote out this whole backwards story like Memento, but like making sense both ways instead of just one way. And yeah, then we made Look What You Become. It was yeah, sorry, Jamar had to run with the baby, so I'll try. She's basically she's kind of in the same boat. Like once we left film school, everything we made we've made together, basically. So yeah,
Dynamic duo.
yeah, thank you.
Talk about a power couple.
Yeah, so when it's wild like how crazy it was looking back, because Jamar just pulled up these numbers, but we started by like writing a novella, which was kind of like we took this 3-season structure and put it all into one tiny little book. And we sold like 80 of them or like 60 of them or something crazy for like the time because it's like we had made nothing. But you know, with the money we made off that, which wasn't much, we put it straight into Look What You Become and made it like with scraps. And it was like that was our real film school. I always like refer to it that way because yeah, what were you saying about pretentious, Ian? Because I made a black and white backwards miniseries. So
I made a black and white anti anti-homophobic story, and I felt like, wow, this is so original. But apparently, I didn't see Rebecca from the 40s or the Conformist from the 70s because what I was doing wasn't exactly groundbreaking shit. But man,
or the
boy,
tape
did I
made
ever think it was. Yeah.
yeah. No, so yeah, basically but that was fun. Like it was a great example of like over those 3 seasons, like I only really directed like 6 or 7 episodes. Like I brought in everyone we knew from film school to keep our connections going. And except Tad, oddly enough, I don't know what happened with Tad. I think he just kind of like went back to Petrolia and like we actually didn't like have any contact during those early days.
Yeah, Tad, what happened?
I also feel like I was kind of like a very forgetful face in that class, and that's just kind of like
Go fuck yourself. We were all good friends, okay?
Oh
I
no, we were all
invited you
good friends,
over.
100%. But like, I don't know. It's very I don't know. I find maybe it's just my perception, but I always find like it's very easy to forget that I'm there sometimes because I don't know.
I just think you just weren't.
That way. Nowadays, not so much. Now I like to make my presence known.
I think you just weren't in London at the end of the day for me. Like
Yeah.
if that's probably the reason that you know
No, 100%,
regardless.
yeah. But hey, we got back together eventually and got in touch. Like
Yeah, that's where our stories kind of congeal again. Is so after we made Look What You Become, I've probably told this story so many times on the podcast, but The Shape of Water was coming out, and out of nowhere, Tad hit me up, or I hit him up. I can't remember how it happened, but we were like, "Yo, let's go to the Fox and the Fiddle, R.I.P." and then go to see Shape of Water, and it was friggin' awesome. I love that movie. But yeah, afterward or before or after when we were at Fox and the Fiddle, I basically pitched him 44. This wild crime. Like in my mind, it was a crime epic. Like it was a long ass script, and yeah, it was like kind of all over the place, but in a weird way. I don't know. Like I do kind of like the structure when I watch it back. Like it's a bit longer, but regardless, I come up with this wild idea, and I wasn't actually gonna make it. I was just writing it to write a script, and like the exercise I always tell you guys to do, just write it. Like there's no budget, just let the story be what the story needs to be. And then Tad came around. He was like, "Oh, yo, I've got like a big like garage thing that could work for this. We could do this torture scene in my one like shed thing." And I don't know, out of nowhere, all these locations just started lining up, and we were like, "Yo, okay, let's do this, Tad. Let's make a friggin' movie." And yeah, we spent the entire time just being like, "Oh my god, we're making a movie," and then the entire editing just being like, "Holy shit, we made a movie!" Like it was a constant just bubble of like happiness.
And to be fair, we still do that. Like even our newest one, it's just like after every cut, we're always just like, guys, we made a movie.
Yeah, the last cut of Taz was heavy. Like it just hit. We were like, yeah, this is gonna be something. But yeah, so I mean, I don't want to go on for fucking ever at this point, but like that's kind of like how we kind of edged out of the film school world, was like like diving really deep into some huge projects. I really wanted to do Look What You Become is just like when I wanted to become a cinematographer. So there's a lot that went into that. That was just like me working with different directors, me experimenting with different ways of shooting things, like how I could break the 180-degree rule, how I could like. There's still some shots in that series that are like crazier than the shit I do nowadays. Like we dug half a hole, put a mirror in the bottom, and like shot like completely zoomed in on the mirror to get like it's so weird how we got some shots. And I don't know, nowadays I wouldn't do stuff like that, but that's what I mean by that being like my film school. So like as we got, not budgets or anything, but like we got spreading our wings and making bigger things. I feel like that's where the lessons learned. And then once you've kind of gotten that far, you look back and be like, well, what the fuck? I paid 10 grand for film school. And I think that's where a lot of this backlash does end up coming from, is that feeling. Like you're so early. Like the way that it should be is you make like 2 films and then you go, like that's how it used to be, right? Like that's all the New York Film School bullshit. Like you had to make something awesome to get into New York film, and then you could actually make a
But
movie.
even then, like you say that, but at the same time, like, would you have been able to make those films if you hadn't gone to film school and like met the people that you met? Like,
I don't know, because it's all Toby. Like if I didn't meet Toby, I probably wouldn't have had any lick of like I can make this myself. Like there is this like idea that's completely gate kept by like I don't know, the zeitgeist, that like you can't make a movie without a production team, a honey wagon, a team of producers all smoking and being skeevy in the
yeah, like you
like
have to
there's
have
just
the budget, and you have to have like, oh yeah, like you know, like you got to pay everybody kind of thing. It's just like, yes, that is a great way to go about it, but like at the same time, like when we look at like 44, when the whole reason like I worked on that movie was because like, hey, like I'll work on this movie for free. Like I'll do everything that you need me to do, everything you want me to do, but in return, you got to help me with my film next. And like that kind of like
okay, this is a
you
good
scratch
segue.
my back, scratch
Let's
yours
just state
can
that.
be like,
Oh, sorry. No, let's just say
no,
it because that's pretty much all we needed to say from Orange Chat. So, like, rewinding back a bit, Tad, yeah, this is his kind of. So, like, out of film school, like you said, you weren't really around for Look What You Become. So, where'd you go from there until we met and then Vent?
well, basically after I left film school, I mean, I'll be honest, like film school, there was a lot of like disillusionment there. Um,
Very
especially
distant.
like, well, it just kind of felt like, yeah, nobody really cared about the things that I wanted to make. Or like I met people that like faked careness, but then like when the time came to actually like get up and do the things, they would just bail. And like, you know, you meet those kind of people that you're like, hey, like you want to act in my movie? I'll buy you like a pizza for a day's work. And they're like, yeah, cool, whatever. And then like the day comes of filming, and it's just like, hey, like where are you? And they're like, oh man, like I got shit faced last night, I'm not coming. And then like your whole day is like ruined because like,
Oh,
it happens. So like I got pretty disillusioned with film school after that. And then like I took a couple years off, worked some odd jobs, mostly retail. And then it got to a point where just like, like I want to try again. So I sat down and I was basically like, well, what's like the most easiest film I could ever make? And I started thinking, oh, well, like one actor, one location, that's it. And it got to like I started watching examples. I started watching movies like Buried, 127 Hours, Lock, all kinds of films like that. And I just kind of like wrote this script. And then yeah, as if like in this almost serendipitous way, Darryl ended up getting in touch with me and just like, hey, like we're making a movie. And I was just like, fuck yeah, I want to be on that. Absolutely. And like one thing led to another. And it was just kind of a thing like, wow, like you help me with I'll help you with your movie. You help me with mine. And then we'll like just kind of have like this creative back and forth with each other. And it's
yeah.
something that we still got going to this very day. Like it's just
Yeah, we basically never exchanged money for services. It's literally just always been
We're talking
like,
about the same service, right?
yeah, oh yeah. But it's just, yeah, just one of those, like, I feel like in a world where we pay basically everybody on set, like Tad's the one person who eventually has gotten like absorbed into the role, like through these like favors that we just like make movies together forever in unison. You know what I mean? It's fucking symbiotic. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Yeah. And yeah, it's dope, man. And Vent, like, it's really funny that you're like, you still can say that with a straight face that it was gonna be easy to do that with one look. Yeah, that actor didn't bail, right? No.
Yeah, no,
Of
it
course he
did.
didn't.
It
Of
did.
course, the one person that we could rely on bailed. And then yeah, so Tad came in like super clutch, actually acting in it when like that was not the idea from the beginning, and like, you know, kind of claustrophobic, kind of faced some fears.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like it wasn't the easiest shoot. I'll say that much. But in
Well,
terms of like,
if it
there's
taught
your
us
film
one
school.
thing, if it taught us one thing, because like all of our shoots we organize so that they operate on weekends, and you know it's nice because like, oh, you shoot a couple days, and then you have your week where you can like go to work, run your errands, that kind of stuff, and then you know next weekend you're good, you're ready to go again. Vent, we actually shot for like a week straight. Like we all took the time off work. We all were like, you guys were basically like living in, you guys were like living at my house, essentially sleeping in the, like, for like a solid week. And it was definitely a different experience in that aspect.
Fucking sucked. But in a good way, like I shouldn't say that. It was just like we are so used to like having that bit off and then coming back and there's new locations and new actors. Like we got used to that on 44. Like that was the quote unquote epic vibe, was the large cast, the large amount of locations. You know, that was the vibe there. But like it was rough to then go. It was cool to do like a set, like because Tad built the vent with his dad, and it was all like in this contained set. But like, dude, I need days off. Like, I burn out so fast. Like, especially when you're just fucking filming the same square over and over. Oh, but it was like you watched it back and you're like, wow, how did we make this in 7 days? Like, it's actually crazy. Um, but yeah, sorry. You continue. I didn't mean to. Just like that was my perspective on Vent, because fucking
No,
that.
100%.
Wow.
Like we felt the grind on that one. It
Yeah.
was definitely like, and that's something that like again with film school, to kind of like get back on that topic,
Yes.
like we you definitely don't feel the grind as much, and like you got to kind of prepare yourself for that when you get into the when you get to actually making your films, because like I think like the worst of it from film school is definitely like the 48-hour film contest. Like that was about like the only time like we were all like really exhausted and just so done with it, because it's
Well,
work. Like making a film is a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of time and effort, and yeah, it's not easy. Like as much as it is like it's easier now than it was back then, it's still not an easy thing to like make a film. Like the fact that any film gets done period is kind of a fucking miracle.
Yep.
yeah. It's
Oh
such
my
an
god.
arduous grind, man. And like the time it takes, I feel like can't be understated. Like you get these like little bursts of like, oh wow, that weekend was really tough, and like, oh that director, oh whatever. Like I at least it's over now. But like when you get to like day 7 out of 20 something, and it's just hell. Like there's, I mean, okay, that's not really our sets, but I'm just saying like you can't get out of it once you start, right? We've had the luck of having some pretty good flows to sets, but like, man, like you don't know how bad you can be trapped when you're in film school and get that variety. Like I feel like it doesn't prepare you for feature filmmaking as much as it probably should.
That's
Agreed.
true. Yeah, because like that's the other thing with film school, at least from my point of view, is that like as it did it did both a really good and a really bad job at like preparing us for making features. because like they just obviously they don't have the time and the resources to give every student a feature length film. So of course they focus on like short films because that's what's like viable. Yeah.
But like, say you even follow their stuff to a T, you make the best short ever. They're like, okay, now make a feature. You're just gonna sink. You don't have any experience with that large. I mean, sure, people do, and that's why people are great. And I'm not saying everyone would. I'm just saying like that's kind of the trap of like of film school as well, right? Like, is if you are only prepared to do shorts well, it's a you'll there's no sense of pacing on a large scale. Like we could talk for hours about just pacing feature films, like how we had no clue entering 44 and we learned a bunch, and then with Vent we learned even more because the pacing couldn't hide. You were just stuck, and it had to be this flow that Tad had designed, and finding it, oh my god, Jamar spent so long doing like minute edits to kind of find flows and find ways through it, and there was no preparation for any of that. And I'm not nixing them because like you're saying, it's really hard. Like what are they going to do, like get like Charlie to make a feature film and then give them all that timeline so they can all work? Like, it feels unrealistic to prepare them for it, but I think that's again another perfect example of why there's this idea that you don't need film school, because it can't teach you things like that are sink or swim for the industry, right? It's
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we've always said, like, or at least I've always said, like, you can be knowledgeable about anything, but that doesn't equate to actual. Well, you can be informed on anything, but that doesn't really equate to real knowledge. Because real knowledge comes from a combination of both information and experience. And like school is really good at giving you all the information that you need and a little bit of the experience. But like, if you want to know what it's like to make a feature film, you just kind of got to go out and make a feature film. Like,
Yeah, like
And
it's.
I don't,
Go on.
no, go Ian. I've been talking way too much.
It's all right.
Coffee got me.
Yeah, like it's. My dad kind of joked about once where he said, "Experience is experience, but college experience is several $1,000s worth of experience." Like, of course, I've had plenty of good experiences from film school. I've had a lot of great lessons from a teacher called Brian Dunphy in particular. Like,
Yeah,
we got
buddy.
along really well.
Yeah.
I had a lot of great things to say, but I've also met tons of people in the film community, like outside of school in the years I haven't even been to college. Like, I just met with a producer in Canada called Daniel Torres. Shout out to him, fantastic guy. Literally invited me over to his house for free to talk about Call the Office and work down my pitch. And of course,
That's
I got that experience for free. So it's just like, of course, like any experience is good experience, but you gotta keep in mind that you're gonna get experience, albeit good or bad, either way. And kind of to build off the point you made about short movies and how they're paced very differently. I think what got me much more comfortable with making a feature length movie is pacing Dungeons and Dragons games, because as you know, like those games go on for years, like literal years. Like Aaron, I think our game went on for a couple of years. Like as soon as you got on board, and it went on a bit longer than that. And the trick
It
you
went
learn.
on.
Go on.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, there was one campaign we did that went on for a year.
Yeah, like it just went on for so long, and you kind of learn to pace things differently. There's this one video from a guy who does game analysis videos called Mark Brown, and there was one point he made about pacing, and it's like, well, how do you do effective pacing in such a long experience? And the trick he kind of came up with was high intensity and low intensity, and every story ever made does follow that to a certain extent, no matter how long it is. And basically, he's saying that you don't want to stay in either intensity for too long. You want to fluctuate between the two intensities. Like a low intensity is like, like characters walking around or having a conversation or like solving a puzzle or a mystery, anything along those lines. But a lot of people think like high intensity means action or explosions. That's not the case. It could be like an argument. It could be like a dramatic plot twist or a character death or like a dramatic revelation or like a really scary scene. If you fluctuate between the two forms of pacing, any story can work out. Dungeons and Dragons, video games, movies, any good story just follows that kind of pacing, no matter how long it is. And typically, the longest movies and the longest Dungeons and Dragons games don't feel long if they can nail that kind of pacing, no matter what
Right.
genre or form of storytelling is. I think that knowledge, A, I got that knowledge for free, and B, without that knowledge, I would not have felt comfortable getting into a feature film after making a short film, especially a short film that was complete and total ass. Like, if I just went off of that, I would have been like, yeah, this is ridiculous. There's no fucking way you can do this.
But that's
Yeah.
the thing. In this environment, you can learn so much for free, like you're saying, and in between, like you got a nice jumping off point because Brian Dunphy is heavily focused on the non-technical aspects of filmmaking, the more philosophical side, philosophical side. Thank you. And yeah, like I feel like that's like you said, a good jumping off point, but then you can learn so much in between from any resources from, YouTube to just you have a nice strong community that you can bounce off and like those are invaluable, you know what I mean? And that's where you will do a lot of the real learning. And I can say for me,
But
like what you said?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, but at the same time, like, is that really learning? Because, like, yes, on one hand, like, you can go on YouTube and you can look at like people who give like information on like all this like all the rules of screenwriting, things like, oh yeah, you have to have something happen within the first 5 pages or things like that. And yeah, like those rules are important and they're good to know, but at the same time, like it's one of those things where like a lot of decisions that are made in film are decisions that just kind of like are spur of the moment, or like things that you just have to experience when you're making the film. So like I always use David F. Sandberg as an example. He has a YouTube channel, Pony Smasher. He directed like Lights Out, the Shazam movie, yeah, and like he did a really great video about like the problem solving of filmmaking and how you see like a lot of like internet critics that are always like, oh yeah, like, well, why didn't they have this one actress in this one scene, or why did we have like this pointless 5-second shot of like this actress like doing up her shoes? And he's like, well, what you don't understand and what you don't see is that the problem solving of that goes behind the scenes to get everything to work. Because like, yeah, we had to shoot like an insert of like an actress tying up her shoes because she wasn't available that day, and we had to get like all the actors into their the outfits that they would be wearing for like the remainder of the film. Like that's just something that just happened on set.
Yeah.
And like you can watch as many YouTube videos and gain all that information as you want, but at the same time, like I think the real value of film school is that you are actually like getting tactile experience and like
I'm saying like you can get that experience either way though. Like you don't necessarily have to go to film school for that. You can like help along or take like apprenticeship programs. I guess that's technically school, but it's a different kind of school.
Well, yeah, and let me specify too, because I feel like you were kind of taking something I was saying in the wrong way, Tad. Because you got to remember where I'm coming at it from mainly is not necessarily the writing. Like that's a very good point. That for a writing perspective, how can you do that? Like you kind of have to trip and fall as a writer, as a director, those kind of things. Me, cinematography wise. So a little bit just quick behind the scenes. So when I took cinematography class, I had Romy, and Romy basically was trying to just like drop us in the deep end kind of stuff. Like he taught us the gear, he taught us like angles, but he didn't teach us like a lot of like I don't know, like specific stuff. Like he was just kind of like find what you like and like ask questions. But it's like I don't know, man. I learned so much from like 17 different YouTube videos like 3 weeks after I graduated, because that it reached a point where like I would ask things and it would be like, oh, you should look into that further online, and then like it became this point where like by me researching cameras and filtration and like LUTs, like they didn't teach me anything about LUTs in school. They kind of touched on Da Vinci, but like I had to learn LUTs like anyone else did, through YouTube through a secondary film school. So I get what you're saying. Like I'm not disagreeing at all. I'm just saying like for my facet, the learning part did actually come after. And like if I didn't research and find that stuff myself, I probably wouldn't like I wouldn't have had it anywhere near enough just from film school.
It felt like
Yeah,
to me
I'm not. No, go ahead, Jamara.
it was like film school gave us some of the ingredients. Like there was probably like, let's say 20 ingredients. They give us 7 ingredients and they're like, you can find the rest online or you can find the rest through experience. And they don't really give us the recipe either.
No.
It's just like you have some ingredients and they're like, okay, see what you can make with this. And it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I don't know, we got more from directing class. That's my issue. Is like the directing class, I think they did go into nitty-gritty, but with cinematography it just felt like a secondary, like teach them some shot angles, tell them to do a minute-long video that has those shot angles in it. That's cinematography. And it's like that is not cinematography in the friggin' slightest. They teach you to white balance Okay, I'm going down a hole now. What were you going to say, Tad?
Go ahead, go down that hole. I want to hear this.
No, it's just a
Yeah, let me grab
cinematography
my
thing.
popcorn real quick.
They teach you like white balance to just white balance everything.
Because that's what the client would like.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Like
Like
make all your shots match.
in general, that was what was hot back then. It
Yeah.
was like we have the ability now. It's not like you have to match a film stock anymore or do that extra work. Just bring the card out, and we know it won't have that nasty like one shot's blue, one shot's orange. Like I'm talking color temperature, not like lighting wise. And it's bad when you mess it up. Thanks to RAW, you can actually save some of that in post now. But regardless, back then you didn't. And I think they just wanted to kind of safeguard that, so they taught you that. But like that's like the cinematographer who came in to teach us about the red was like, guys, like don't do that. Don't ever do that. Like you start by picking your color temperature to know how you're going to manipulate your image, to know like how your lenses are going to reflect, because certain lenses actually don't work as well in a certain temperature range because they were only tested on tungsten stock. It's a wild rabbit hole, but like basically the cinematographer was like, yeah, you guys are learning, like Jamara said, clientele cinematography, and you have to actually go out and do like hours and hours of research and watch movies. You have to watch so many movies. I think we're underselling like Tarantino's biggest rule, right? He didn't go to film school, he went to the films, right?
Yeah.
And like so
True.
I think there's an aspect of that, right? We all learn so much from our favorite directors and cinematographers, writers, and at a certain point, you can't hold that all to the person who's teaching you. Like I've always said, if I were to come in as a cinematography teacher for AFM now, and it's all I did, nothing else, like how they had Brickman for that one part of editing, it would probably be a really well taught course. But when you have 3 teachers trying to teach all the subjects, it's spread thin, and I think you kind of got to acknowledge that too. Is you're kind of you can't expect the world, even though you're dropping 10 grand, and we're all like, oh, 10 grand, that's crazy. Like, I don't know, man. We're starting to get to the point where like 10 grand is like friggin' one actor's budget, and you just roll your eyes, and it's like, goddamn. So like, I feel like at a certain point, like it's not the craziest amount to the everyday person by all means, but like if theoretically you could just go out of film school, make a couple avoid film school, make a couple movies, then go to film school, I feel like the experience would be completely different. You would have such a different like group of serious people who are actually trying to like all make their own like thesis shorts and like all have something to say, and it's not like, oh, I don't know, dead girlfriend wakes up with an alarm clock,
Silent Hill.
you know what I mean? Everything. Like we've all seen the million things. It's black and white. It's 4:3. Whatever. So yeah, at a certain extent, I feel like there is no answer to this question. You know, I think that's what
It's
I'm trying to say.
complicated, is the answer to
Yeah.
it. But I want to rewind even further.
Go for it.
Aaron Kramers, have you worked on any projects after film school? And if so, what can you tell us about them?
I have acted in 1 or 2 student film projects.
Nice.
One scene that got cut, mostly due to me speaking inappropriate while filming, and another one was kept and it was accepted. The one that got kept and was accepted was called Kate and Taylor. I don't know if you could find it online, but it was probably where I learned how how on set filmmaking works, like with professional people mostly, like changing the lenses and like having the AD write down what the cinema lens it is for the scene that's being shot at, or let's say setting up lighting, which I think is the best thing that film school has taught me, besides like business side, which is like writing like contracts and all that, and cinematography and lighting. Learning about lighting made me fall in love with theatrical lighting, but that's not what I would say is the best. What I would also say is that how everyone set up the filmmaking.
Well, filmmaking class is also good for getting you to do the stuff you wouldn't normally want to do yourself. Like when I worked on like a documentary project, I was doing a documentary course. It was a free documentary course for filming the elderly at an elderly home, and I hated the idea of editing. I wanted nothing to do with it, but they were like, you gotta shoot your own movie, you gotta direct your own movie, you gotta edit your own movie, you gotta do it. But since I did editing, I fell in love with it. I hated the sound of my own fucking voice, but when it involved other people talking, like I fell in love with the process. But if I didn't have that course, I would never know what editing is like. Schooling is good for like nudging you towards things you don't like. And I think that's the best thing you can get out of a school experience, because in real life you tend to go for things, especially when you aren't working, especially on your free time, towards like, yeah, I want to do cool things like cinematography and directing, and I want to write my own movie. But film school is good for like, yeah, that's nice. Go grab a lamp and do some lighting. Go do some color grading. Like, kind of get you out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Learn some VFX shots.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. Like, I agree 100% with that. Like, I think the best thing about film school is that like it shows you all the different aspects that it takes to make a film, and then like it gives you a bit more of an appreciation for those different aspects. Like when you edit a film, you kind of like have a little bit more respect. That way, like when you do get to like start making your own movies, or like if you do bring somebody on who's like an editor, you kind of have like a bit more of a framework to know like what to ask, what not to ask, like what's feasible, what's not feasible. And like, yeah, 100%. Like that's a very good thing about film school is you got to wear many hats. And yeah, some of them are orange.
Hey, he said the thing. There's something. Yeah, go on.
Oh. I just want to like go back. You guys were talking about like pacing and like how to pace like a feature film, and kind of how that's different. You don't really learn that in film school. I feel like the route that we took, like advice for anyone out there, the route that we took making a mini series before a feature, the scripts that we wrote all together were longer than the feature film that we made 44. Like our mini series was our longest project.
Yeah.
And
3 hours.
it was more so a combination of, or a compilation of a lot of short films. So it was a really nice bridge, a really nice segue going from only learning shorts and how to operate on that small scale in film school to making our first feature, because we felt confident after we had made this 3-season mini series of 5 to 7 10-minute long episodes that we could make a project of that length. And the whole series did have sort of like a pace, and it was an interesting experience. I feel like if anyone were to make a project, a series like that, where you could go in and out and be done in 10 episodes and kind of pace yourself that way, is a really good stepping stone.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One more question I wanted to ask because it's already about an hour and 10 minutes into the podcast. But one more question I want to ask. It's a long one, so definitely eat up the rest of the time we've got here. Money. Things are getting incredibly expensive. Everything's getting expensive. New Switch game, $100. Going to movie theaters. Depending on what seat you get in certain theaters, you gotta pay more money. Everything's getting a little more expensive, and that's definitely causing people to be more stingy and more picky with their money. And I just want to ask, do you think that's had an influence on film school at all? Do you think people are being too prudent? Do you think people are being smart with their money by not going to school? And what are some ways you'd recommend saving some money while also getting some good experience?
I think that the raise, like the increase in
Inflation,
price of
yeah.
everything, I think it's really driven a lot of people to the online world. And like when we were in school, like there was like a fair amount of content online with independent filmmakers and everything, but it has exploded in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people necessarily need film school the way that we did 10 years ago, 9 years ago. Like it is a completely different ball game, and you could definitely find a lot of the same information that we were learning online now in different ways.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. Like, there's this film professor. I don't know if he's a film professor or a writing professor, but he gives like tips for writing books in science fiction, and he straight up puts his entire lectures on YouTube for free. So you like you don't even have to pay money to get like a professional lecture anymore. Like, yeah, you're kind of messing out on raising your hand and asking questions in person and doing things face to face, but the actual lecture in of itself and even like answering some other students' questions that you might have, thought about in your head, might not have, like you don't even have to pay money to get that. So I just find that interesting. Yeah. Like I said, I think school is great for like pushing you in a certain direction, but I do kind of roll my eyes at the courses that need to be like 6 years long and you have to do so many different things. But I think schooling is better for like a few years of experience because you don't want to. Because I feel like by the time you're done school, you expect that kind of pacing and structure to life. In my opinion, like you expect life to be just like school, but it isn't. Like not even close. But I feel like if you take a little less time at school, you'd be more open to flexibility in that sense. But so yeah, if you want to pay money, like again, just want to clarify for everybody, your money is your money. If you want to go buy Hogwarts Legacy, I've got no problem with that. If you want to go pay a lot of money for film school, it's your money. At the end of the day, it's your money. It's just my personal recommendation, our personal recommendations. Like we certainly don't judge. I'm currently looking at my $100 Godzilla figurine, so to say that I'm an expert on financing would be a huge lie. So, just so you guys know.
No, I think you have a good point though. Like, if I had to recommend it now, and it all depends, but from the way you made it sound with the how film 1 and 2 goes now, you got to make a bad film no matter what. But I remember the pricing for that being a lot more like generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you just did those, spend a little bit of money on that, and then take what you would have spent on film school. And before you do anything, just start going out and PAing on local productions and just helping out and soaking up as much actual information from
Yes,
like
just
people.
put your name out there, like,
Yeah, exactly.
and
And then
eventually
once
people will find it.
Totally. And once you've gotten over that hill, that's when I'd say take that money and either put it towards a bit of gear now that you've kind of got an idea, like between the 2 years and then taking maybe a year or two of just going out and working on things. Like you'll start to get a pretty dang good idea about what you want to pursue. And then you have a nice little nest egg to pursue it. Honestly, as much as like there's so many advantages to going to film school, Yeah, in this day and age, with how much is online and how much you have to do yourself anyways, it really just then becomes like, would you pay that much to have access to that gear for that long? And that's a different conversation altogether. But
Absolutely.
yeah, no,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
my
right now,
recommendation.
I can, speaking from somebody who's like a current student right now, like I think like I'm paying $7,000 in tuition, not so much to learn like I'm basically just paying so that like I can get that kind of like experience in the way that it's like, oh, well, like these are like the programs that are industry standard. It's probably good that I learn them if I want something that's like a career in in this kind of like industry, right? Like I think that's also kind of a benefit. And like school can also be like helpful in the sense that like a lot of these programs that I'm using in this course, they're not free, but because you're going to school, they're free. So like I don't know. I think there is some benefit to film school, but at the same time, like yeah, I do kind of agree with everybody else here that like I think online has caught up to the aspect where it's just if you want to skip it and just get your experience from actually like going out and making things, I think that's a much better route than you know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say too that we talked a lot about how the networking for us was a big benefit to paying that tuition, and we still have those connections. But especially in London right now, there is a growing film scene, and there are constant film meetups, and the the opportunities for you to put your name out there, like you're saying, and attend one of these events and mingle and network yourself, it's there. So there's not really as big of a push in London, I would say, to necessarily the need to go to film school to get that benefit.
True. True. I mean, if you want it hard enough, you can probably find it, right? Like
Yeah.
What do you think, Aaron?
I think that okay, I'm a little lost for a moment. I'm sorry.
Take your time. It's all
um,
good.
all right. Could I get like some like
Some water.
sure.
All right.
How would you spend the money for film? Like, what would be your advice to somebody if they were preparing to go?
do you think film school is worth the price of tuition?
That money, the
Yeah.
tuition money that you would get for film school, I think should be used for making your own film, not for school. But that's just my opinion. However, if you are, let's say, well off, middle class, upper class, and you want to learn how to be a filmmaker, then by all means go to film school. Otherwise, if you're like say lower working class and you want to be a filmmaker, your best bet to do is just go to watch tutorials.
Yeah, like it all just depends on your lot in life too. Like, maybe you've got money to spare, maybe you don't got money to spare. Like, use your money carefully. Don't, pitch everything on film school. Don't pitch everything on making a movie either. Be smart with your money. Just,
Exactly.
keep everything in mind, stay level headed, and eventually you'll make it as a filmmaker, and hopefully I will too. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up, guys. This was yet another excellent episode of Talks with Moire. Fantastic. Tune in next Thursday because it is my recommended episode called A History of Love. We'll be talking about I believe it's the 2000 film, Love and Basketball. Yep, 2000 film. Then we'll be talking about the next film because Darryl won't shut up about me watching it, If Beale Streets Could Talk. And we'll also be talking about, just to stay a little relevant, 2022's The Inspection. So definitely look forward to that. We're trying to get our friend and film guy Bernard Petit on the podcast, but he is also a busy guy, so just keep that in mind. He may not be able to show up. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I'll let Darryl take it out. Well, end it on a. I'm at a loss of words. Darryl, help me out here.
Thanks for coming to another great episode of. Damn it, I fucked it up. Thanks for attending another special episode of Tuesdays with Moire.
On Thursdays.
On Thursdays, as a panel. I don't fucking know. Thanks for listening, folks.
Have a great night, guys. Bye.